Christina's Ghost, Chapter 10. You mean he's a ghost? A book could change your life, Chris discovered. Of course, Uncle Ralph still groaned every time she opened her paperback, but he still listened to the riddles. Once in a while, he even guessed the right answer. Afterward, they talked about other things as well. "You're a rare one, Christina," he said one day. But it didn't sound as if he was criticizing her. Actually, Chris thought it wasn't just the riddles that were making the difference. Uncle Ralph had changed since the great pancake disaster. Chris caught him looking at her with amusement, as if he'd just noticed she was a real person, something more than just a tomboy pest. She could hardly wait to tell Grandma. One evening, when mist rolled in off the lake and the air turned chilly, Uncle Ralph built a fire in the study fireplace. Chris sat cross-legged on the floor, enjoying the coziness of firelight and crackling logs. "What kind of train will make you put on your glasses?" She read from her book. Uncle Ralph scowled. "Oh, that's a ridiculous question." "Eye strain. Get it?" She snickered at his pained expression. "They're becoming worse every day," Uncle Ralph said. "How many riddles are in that blasted book?" Chris looked at the cover. 500. Ugh, Uncle Ralph pretended to pull his hair. "I'll never live through them," he exclaimed. 500 and the most annoying. Chris giggled. "Did you buy any cocoa, Uncle Ralph? I could make us some." "Certainly I bought cocoa," Uncle Ralph retorted. He raised an eyebrow at her. "How good are you at cocoa making, compared to pancake making, that is?" "I'm terrific." Chris stopped short. Across the study, and well outside the circles of firelight, Russell Charles stood watching them. "Uncle Ralph?" She tried to keep her voice steady. "Uncle Ralph, look over there in front of the closet door. Please, just look." Uncle Ralph looked, for what seemed a very long time. Chris held her breath as they both stared at the little wavering figure. Then a log snapped, and a spark flew, sending the shower of sparks up the chimney. "Who's there?" Uncle Ralph exploded. He hurtled across the study and threw open the closet door. "Where is he?" he roared. "Where did he go? Christina!" He turned back from the empty closet. "What kind of trick was that?" "It wasn't a trick," Chris told him. "It was Russell Charles. He lived in this house a long time ago. I've seen him lots of times." Uncle Ralph shook his head as if he were trying to wake himself from a dream. "You mean he's a ghost?" he said. "That's what you want me to believe?" He jumped up to look again into the closet. When he came back to the fire, his face was as pale as the little boy's had been. "I don't believe in ghosts, Christina," he said. "I don't know what that thing was standing there, but it wasn't a ghost." "Yes, it was," Chris insisted. "I saw him the very first day we got here, Uncle Ralph. I tried to tell you about him then, remember?" The words tumbled over each other as she described the other time she'd seen Russell, and how she'd learned he liked being around someone who was cheerful. "He's lonesome," she said. I think he's scared, too." "This is ridiculous." Uncle Ralph's glance kept returning to that corner where Russell had stood. "Scared of what?" "Scared of whatever's in the attic," Chris told him. "There's something really bad up there." Uncle Ralph took a handkerchief from his pocket, and he patted his forehead. "Something bad?" he repeated. And when Chris hesitated, he leaned forward impatiently. "Go on," he said. "You might as well tell me." Chris described how the attic door had opened by itself, even with the chest pushed in front of it. She told about the footsteps and the terrifying cold, and then she repeated what she'd learned in the office of Clearwater Journal. "I think the ghost of the little boy's tutor is up there in the attic," she said. "His name is Thomas Dixon, and he was an awful person. Russell must have been scared of him." She almost said scared to death, but that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Uncle Ralph leaned back in his chair and gave her a weak grin. "You really are something," he murmured. "Worked it all out, haven't you? Do you realize, Christina, that this is exactly how myths and fairy tales begin?" Chris frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean that all through the ages, people have taken facts, in this case, the unfortunate murders of two people, and added fantasy to make the facts more interesting. You're doing that now. You discovered we're living in a house where 2 murders took place a long time ago, and now you're seeing the ghosts of the victims. Chris clenched her teeth. You saw Russell too, she gritted. Well, I saw something, a trick of the firelight. It was a little boy. You saw him. All right, I saw something that looked like a little boy, but there has to be some reasonable explanation. I just haven't thought of it yet. So let's not get into the state, okay? I'm not in a state, Chris jumped up. Just when she was beginning to like Uncle Ralph, he had to act like the old Uncle Ralph. I'm not lying either, she raged. Uncle Ralph held a calming hand. I'm not calling you a liar, he said. I know you think you've been seeing a ghost, or ghosts. He closed his eyes as if he were suddenly tired of the whole subject. Let's forget it. Why don't you make cocoa now? I don't want cocoa, Chris snapped. I'm going to bed. No cocoa? Uncle Ralph shook his head in dismay. For a moment, his mock mournful expression reminded her of the man in the newspaper office. I don't cook, and I'm glad of it, she announced, her voice squeaking with annoyance. And you know what else? I'm going to have a career when I grow up. Uncle Ralph followed her into the foyer and watched her go up the stairs. What's that all about? He asked. He was still standing there when she slammed her bedroom door hard behind her.